Ever wondered what quantitative easing is and how it affects the economy? Quantitative easing, or QE as it's often abbreviated, might sound like a complex term, but it's a concept that has a significant impact on our daily lives. At its core, QE is a tool used by central banks around the globe. But it's not just any tool, it's a monetary policy mechanism designed to stimulate the economy, especially during times of financial stress. Imagine the economy as a car engine. Just as a car needs fuel to run smoothly, so too does the economy need money to function effectively. When the economy stalls, QE is like the jumpstart or the energy drink that gets it revving again. But why should we care? Well, QE has profound effects on things like interest rates, inflation, and even the price of your morning cup of joe. Ready to dive deeper into the world of quantitative easing? Buckle up. So what exactly is quantitative easing? Well, think of it as a financial magic trick where central banks like the Federal Reserve conjure new money out of thin air. But how does this magic work? It's simple, really. The central bank creates this new money to buy government bonds and other financial assets. Now, you might be wondering, why does the central bank want to buy these assets? The answer lies in the objective of quantitative easing, which is to increase the money supply in the economy. When the central bank buys these assets, it essentially pumps more money into the financial system. This increases the amount of money banks have at their disposal to lend to businesses and individuals. But wait, there's more to this story. When there's more money flowing in the system, banks are encouraged to lend more. This is because the increased money supply reduces the cost of borrowing. It's a bit like when there's a surplus of apples in a market, the price of apples goes down. Similarly, when there's a surplus of money in the financial system, the cost of borrowing that money goes down. This reduction in borrowing costs encourages businesses to invest in new projects and individuals to spend on goods and services. It's a catalyst that spurs economic activity. When businesses invest, they create jobs. When individuals spend, they boost demand. And increased demand leads to higher production, which again creates more jobs. It's a virtuous cycle that stimulates economic growth. Now let's not forget, quantitative easing isn't used all the time. It's a special tool that central banks employ during tough economic times like a recession or a financial crisis. It's like an emergency kit that's only opened when the economy is in dire straits. So, to sum it up, quantitative easing is a financial strategy where the central bank creates new money to buy assets, increasing the money supply, lowering borrowing costs, encouraging investment, and stimulating economic activity. In essence, quantitative easing is like an adrenaline shot to the economy's heart. Now that we've grasped what quantitative easing is, how does it work in real life? Well, let's dive in. When the economy is in a slump, central banks can inject money into the economy through a process we now know as quantitative easing. They do this by buying financial assets from commercial banks and other private institutions. This increases the excess reserves of the banks, and with more money at their disposal, they can lend more. This is where we start to see the ripple effect of quantitative easing. First off, it can lower interest rates. When banks have more money to lend, they can afford to reduce the interest rates they charge on loans. Lower interest rates mean it's cheaper to borrow money, whether you're a business looking to invest in new equipment or a family trying to buy a home. This encourages spending and investment, which can stimulate economic growth. Next, we see that quantitative easing can boost the economy. When businesses and individuals are borrowing and spending more, demand for goods and services increases. This heightened demand can lead to businesses hiring more employees to keep up, reducing unemployment and further stimulating the economy. But like any medicine, quantitative easing can have side effects. The most notable one is inflation. When there's more money circulating in the economy, the value of that money can decrease. And when the value of money decreases, the prices of goods and services can increase. This is inflation in action. If not carefully managed, inflation can erode the purchasing power of money, making everything more expensive and potentially leading to a decrease in living standards. So, in a nutshell, quantitative easing is a tool used by central banks to stimulate the economy by making it cheaper to borrow money, encouraging spending, and creating jobs. But it's a balancing act. Too much money in the economy can lead to inflation and other unintended consequences. While quantitative easing can boost the economy, it's not without its side effects. So what happens when a central bank injects more money into the economy? Well, let's dive into the potential outcomes. First up, we have inflation. When there's more money floating around, the value of each unit of currency tends to drop. That's because the increased supply of money can outpace the growth of real output, leading to higher prices for goods and services. Next, the devaluation of currency. With more money in circulation, each dollar, pound, yen, or whatever currency you're dealing with is worth less. This can make imports more expensive, but also boost exports by making them cheaper for foreign buyers. And finally, the impact on savers and investors. With lower interest rates due to quantitative easing, savers might get less return on their deposits. On the other hand, investors might enjoy a boost in asset prices, as cheap money often finds its way into investments like stocks and real estate. Quantitative easing, like any tool, must be used wisely to prevent unintended consequences. In the world of economics, quantitative easing is a fascinating and complex tool. It's like a magic wand waved by central banks, with the power to inject money into our economy on a grand scale. We've journeyed through the nuts and bolts of quantitative easing, understanding how it works, seeing it in action, and exploring its potential impacts. Remember how we discussed that quantitative easing involves buying government bonds and other securities? This is done to lower interest rates and encourage borrowing, which in turn stimulates economic growth. It's a bit like turning up the thermostat when the house gets cold. But just as turning up the heat can lead to a too warm house, quantitative easing isn't without its potential downsides, such as inflation and asset bubbles. We've peeled back the layers of this economic tool, revealing its complexities and nuances. Remember, when it comes to the economy, there's always more than meets the eye. Stay curious.